Welcome to this demonstration video on how to set up the LPR server for iTrack. To start with, we'll start the LPR server software. You can see at the moment that there are no cameras that have been set up. So we will start just with the basic configuration information, so we can go to the system, have a look at the licensing. You can see that the licensing has been set up and the software is licensed. If not, you can click on request trial key to get a trial key. As the software is licensed, we won't request a trial key. So let's have a look at the preferences. We can go to the preferences. In here we can enter the server name. This is the name that will appear whenever a detection takes place inside the detection record. And then we can also list the data server that needs to be contacted with all detections. In this case, the data server is running on the local host, port 6280. That's the URL, and then the LPR server is the username and the given password for accessing the data server. Let's go ahead now and add a camera. There we go, camera, add. You'll see the camera is given a default name of camera 0. So let's now connect it up to a video source. We click on configuration. We can change the name, and let's change this to Takai LPR out. We can set the frame rate. At the moment it's set to 0, so it'll give it unlimited frame rate and update the display as often as possible. We can also specify the latitude and longitude of the camera, so that at a later date this can be plotted on a map. And this option to launch the camera in a separate process will create a out-of-process application which will handle the camera communication. Let's have a look at the source. There are various options here. For a local source, if you have a particular camera connected directly to the machine and the appropriate drivers are installed, then this will appear here. You can connect to an IP camera. Some sample of the URL that needs to connect to the RTSP is given. You can also replay a video file, and you can select the video file to play, or you can connect to a Neo video server. That is what we're going to do in this case. So we know what our Neo video server IP is. This is equally could be a fully qualified domain name as well, and we will then use the username and password. And now let's get the camera list. You can see the camera name field is now populated. So let's select that camera. Before we apply the settings, just go through and check everything and go OK. And you'll see now we have a video feed for that camera. We can now have a look at configuring the camera. So now let's have a look at the LPR settings. First thing we can do is decide whether we want to enable LPR or not on this camera. In this case it is enabled, and we can then also set up the detection region. And we can do this simply by clicking on the box on either corner of the rectangle, dragging it to wherever we want, and we've now set up the detection region for the number plates. And we go OK. There are various other parameters that can be set, such as the minimum character height, the maximum character height, the plate length, which country. So if you are not in South Africa, you can select the appropriate country for the plate that you're going to be detecting. You can determine the color scheme, whether it's black on white or white on black. And you can select contrast levels, precision modes, frame rates, plate presence time, etc, etc, etc. We won't cover all of these in detail here. They'll be covered under the documentation on the website. The other option just to take note of is the save next previous frames. As iTrack uses the principle of saving frames when a plate is detected, it also can save a frame about a quarter of a second to half a second before, as well as a quarter to half a second after, and this will enable that feature. Now we can go OK. We can see already that some plates have been detected. If you right click, there are a couple of menu options to take note of. You can see the LPR box So it will show you exactly where it's detecting frames, so you can check this against the vehicles as they're passing by. You can show the LPR frame queue. On the left hand side here, it will show you a queue going from green to yellow to eventually red to indicate how many frames have been queued. Once it hits red, then the system will automatically start dropping frames. Now let's just take those off for now. You can also enable the motion detection algorithm, which when there's motion on of vehicles coming past, it will then show you where that motion is detection, as you can see up to the top right. And there again you can see all the areas where motion has been detected are highlighted in red. In addition, there are other options to disable video capture, to disable the display of the frames, in other words just disable the rendering of the frames, and then to be able to configure the camera. Additional cameras can be added, so by selecting camera you can go add camera, and now you can go through the same process to configure camera 1. You can add as many cameras as the computer that this is running on will allow. Obviously, as you add more and more cameras, it requires more and more processing power. And that is the basic setup now of how to set up the LPR server. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us via email on info@iTrackLPR.com. Thank you.